The moment you start chasing, you lower your position, not because desire is weak, not because ambition is wrong, but because chasing signals imbalance. It says, I need this more than it needs me. And the moment that dynamic forms, whether in relationships, career, status, or validation, you lose leverage internally. Chasing is rarely about love. It's about fear. Fear of losing the opportunity, fear of not being chosen, fear of falling behind, fear that if you don't act now, you'll be forgotten. And when fear drives action, your posture changes, your tone changes, your decisions become reactive instead of deliberate. Stoicism teaches something radically different. You cannot force what is not aligned. You cannot beg something into permanence. You cannot chase your way into genuine attraction. What you can do is control your character, your standards, your discipline, and your presence. The Stoic mindset does not chase, it builds. When you chase, you seek external validation. When you build, you cultivate internal gravity. And gravity attracts without effort. The sun does not chase planets. It holds its position. Its strength creates orbit. The same principle applies to your life. The more desperate you are for attention, the less stable you appear. The more urgent you are for approval, the less grounded you feel. But when you focus on self-mastery, on becoming disciplined, composed, self-contained, you shift from seeking to embodying. And what belongs to you will not require pursuit that costs your dignity. In this video, we're going to break down the Stoic truth behind don't chase, attract. Why detachment creates power, why desperation weakens presence, and how to become so internally aligned that what is meant for you naturally finds its way into your life. Because the goal is not to manipulate outcomes. The goal is to become the kind of man who doesn't need to chase them. Chasing feels proactive. It feels bold. It feels like effort. You tell yourself you're going after what you want. But Stoicism asks a deeper question. Are you pursuing with purpose or chasing from attachment? There is a difference. Purpose is calm. It is steady. It acts without desperation. Attachment is anxious. It is urgent. It needs reassurance. When you chase someone's attention, approval, or affection, you are often trying to close the gap between how you feel about yourself and how you want to feel. That gap is dangerous, because the more you depend on someone else to fill it, the weaker your internal foundation becomes. You begin measuring your worth by response time, by enthusiasm, by whether they reciprocate your energy. And once your emotional state is tied to their reaction, you are no longer grounded, you are reactive. Stoicism teaches that anything you cannot lose without losing yourself has too much control over you. If you panic when someone pulls away, that's attachment. If your mood drops when attention fades, that's attachment. If you feel compelled to send another message because silence makes you uncomfortable, that's attachment. And attachment repels. Not because people dislike attention, but because desperation lacks stability. Stability is attractive. Self-command is attractive. Calm confidence is attractive. When you stop chasing, you are not withdrawing effort. You are withdrawing dependency. You are signaling to yourself that your value does not fluctuate based on someone else's response. That shift changes your energy. You stop over-explaining. You stop double-texting. You stop rearranging your schedule for crumbs of attention. You maintain your pace. You maintain your standards. You maintain your composure. And that composure communicates something powerful. You want connection, but you do not need it to validate you. That is strength, and strength does not chase. It attracts. When people hear "don't chase," they often confuse it with not caring. They think detachment means being cold, distant, or emotionally unavailable. But Stoicism never taught apathy. It taught control. Detachment is not indifference. It is emotional sovereignty. You can care deeply and still remain grounded. You can desire someone and still maintain your standards. You can pursue opportunities and still accept outcomes without collapsing. That balance is what separates strength from neediness. When you chase, you are trying to control the outcome. You are trying to secure certainty. You are trying to eliminate the discomfort of not knowing. But detachment says, I will show up fully, and I will accept what follows without losing myself. That mindset changes how you move. You express interest once, clearly and confidently. You do not overcompensate. You do not flood someone with attention hoping it increases your value. You do not negotiate attraction. You let your presence speak for itself. If they respond with equal energy, alignment grows naturally. If they don't, you do not beg for consistency. You step back. That step back is power, because it communicates that you are not here to convince someone to choose you. You are here to see if they naturally align with you. That shift, from proving to evaluating, changes the entire dynamic. Stoicism teaches acceptance of reality without resistance. If someone pulls away, that is information. If someone loses interest, that is clarity. You do not fight reality, you adjust to it. And when you operate from that place of calm detachment, something happens. You become rare. Because most people cling, most people chase, most people panic when energy shifts. But the man who remains steady, who neither chases nor withdraws bitterly, who simply holds his position, he carries gravity. And gravity attracts what is aligned, not by force, by presence. If you truly want to attract instead of chase, you must build gravity. Gravity is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not demand attention. It simply exists with such density that things begin to orbit it naturally. In life, that density is character. Stoicism teaches that your focus should be on what you can control. Your habits, your discipline, your mindset, your reactions. When you obsess over outcomes, you scatter your energy. When you obsess over becoming solid, you concentrate it. Concentrated energy creates presence. When you are disciplined physically, mentally, emotionally, you move differently. You are not frantic. You are not trying to impress. You are not competing for attention. You are investing in yourself without an audience. And people feel that. When you are chasing, your energy pushes outward. It reaches, it tries, it forces. When you are building, your energy pulls inward. It strengthens, it sharpens, it stabilizes. And that stability changes the way you are perceived. You don't talk excessively about your goals. You execute them. You don't advertise your standards. You live by them. You don't seek validation. You generate value. That internal focus removes desperation. And desperation is what repels alignment. Think about it clearly. When someone is constantly seeking reassurance, constantly over-communicating, constantly trying to prove their worth, it creates tension. But when someone is self-contained, consistent, and purposeful, it creates intrigue. Stoicism would say that the wise man is content within himself, not because he rejects connection, but because he is not incomplete without it. That completeness is magnetic. When you become whole on your own, you stop trying to convince people to see your value. You simply embody it. And what belongs to you, whether opportunity, partnership, or success, does not require chasing. It requires readiness. Readiness is built through discipline. Discipline builds gravity, and gravity does not chase. It attracts. One of the clearest signs you are chasing is when you start forcing what isn't flowing. You send the extra message, you initiate every conversation, you make excuses for inconsistent behavior, you justify red flags because you're attached to the outcome. You tell yourself that if you just try harder, give more, explain better, be more impressive, things will stabilize. But Stoicism teaches that reality does not bend to effort alone. Alignment is either present or it isn't. When something belongs in your life, it does not require constant convincing. It does not require you to shrink your standards or inflate your effort disproportionately. Mutual interest has rhythm. It has reciprocity. It has ease. Chasing disrupts that rhythm. The more you push, the more unnatural the interaction becomes. You start reading into silence. You start over-analyzing responses. You start negotiating your own boundaries to keep momentum alive. And slowly, you drift away from your center. Stoicism would call this resisting nature. If someone is not meeting your energy, that is information. If an opportunity requires you to compromise your integrity just to maintain access, that is clarity. Your job is not to override reality. Your job is to respond to it wisely. Forcing what isn't aligned drains you. It makes you anxious. It makes you reactive. It makes you dependent on unpredictable feedback. And dependency weakens frame. When you stop forcing, something powerful happens. You conserve energy, you maintain dignity, you allow space, and space reveals truth faster than pressure ever could. If they step forward naturally, alignment grows. If they drift away, misalignment is confirmed. Either way, you win, because you didn't compromise yourself in the process. Stoicism is not about passivity. It is about disciplined action followed by acceptance. You make your intention clear once. You show interest once. You create opportunity once. After that, you observe. And what is meant to remain will not require chasing to stay. When you stop chasing, your energy changes. You're no longer scanning for signs. You're no longer obsessing over response times. You're no longer adjusting your mood based on someone else's behavior. There's a steadiness that enters your posture, a calm confidence that doesn't need to prove itself. Stoicism calls this inner sufficiency. You are not empty without someone's attention. You are not incomplete without someone's approval. You are not destabilized by silence. And when you genuinely internalize that, it shows. You move slower, but with certainty. You speak less, but with clarity. You engage, but without urgency. That lack of urgency is powerful, because urgency signals fear. It signals scarcity. It signals that you believe this is your only opportunity. Calm confidence signals abundance. It communicates that you value connection, but you do not depend on it. People feel that difference immediately. When you stop chasing, you stop over-investing. You stop over-explaining. You stop overextending. You meet energy with equal energy. You give interest once and allow the other person to step forward if they choose. And if they don't, you remain composed. That composure is what shifts the dynamic. Because the moment someone realizes you are not emotionally hooked, that your stability does not hinge on their reaction, they begin to see you differently, not because you played a game, but because you demonstrated self-command. Stoicism reminds you that control begins with restraint. You cannot control who chooses you. You cannot control who sees your value, but you can control how you respond to inconsistency. When you respond with calm instead of panic, you create gravity. And gravity doesn't need to chase. It holds its position and lets the aligned come closer on their own. If you truly want to stop chasing, you must shift your focus from getting to becoming. Most people approach attraction backwards. They ask, how do I get them to like me? Instead of asking, am I someone who naturally commands respect? That shift changes everything. Stoicism teaches that your task is self-mastery, not persuasion, not performance, not manipulation, self-mastery. When you discipline your body, your mind sharpens. When you discipline your thoughts, your reactions stabilize. When you discipline your habits, your confidence becomes earned instead of imagined. Earned confidence is different. It does not beg for attention. It does not crumble under rejection. It does not inflate under praise. It is steady because it is built on proof. Proof that you follow through. Proof that you can endure discomfort. Proof that you govern yourself. That self-command makes you the prize. Not because you act superior, not because you withhold artificially, but because you are selective. You are not available for chaos. You are not available for inconsistency. You are not available for half-effort dynamics. You invest where there is reciprocity. You withdraw where there is imbalance. And that behavior communicates value without words. When you chase, you are trying to secure something external. When you become the prize, you are refining something internal, and internal refinement is far more sustainable. Stoicism reminds you that the only true possession is your character. Build that relentlessly. Build your health. Build your discipline. Build your purpose. Build your calm. When you do, your energy changes. You stop looking for someone to complete you. You look for someone to complement you. And what complements strength does not need to be chased. It aligns, because value recognizes value. And when you become solid, you no longer need to prove it. It is felt. One of the hardest parts about not chasing is trusting timing. Your mind wants acceleration. It wants confirmation that things are moving. It wants visible progress. But Stoicism teaches patience without passivity. There is a difference between waiting idly and building actively. When you stop chasing, it does not mean you stop progressing. It means you stop forcing outcomes while continuing to refine yourself. You move forward in your purpose. You improve your skills. You expand your network. You strengthen your body. You cultivate your discipline. You are not standing still. You are advancing without attachment. That detachment allows you to trust timing without losing momentum. You understand that what aligns with your growth will intersect naturally. You do not rush connections that are not ready. You do not panic when progress is slow. You do not mistake delay for denial. Most people sabotage good timing by acting too soon. They push for exclusivity before clarity. They demand commitment before consistency. They overinvest before alignment. And in doing so, they strain what could have unfolded organically. Stoicism teaches harmony with reality. If something is meant to grow, it will grow at a pace consistent with mutual readiness. Your responsibility is not to accelerate it. It is to be prepared when it arrives. Preparation requires discipline. So you keep moving. You keep refining. You keep expanding your competence and stability. You let life unfold without clutching at it. And here is the paradox. The more secure you become in your own momentum, the less anxious you are about outcomes. You stop staring at the horizon waiting for something to appear. You focus on your steps, and when you focus on your steps, you naturally arrive where you are meant to be. Trusting timing does not mean you abandon ambition. It means you align ambition with patience, and patience, rooted in strength, attracts what force never could. The final shift happens when you no longer fear losing what you desire. As long as you are afraid to lose someone, you will unconsciously chase them. As long as you are afraid to miss an opportunity, you will overextend yourself to secure it. Fear creates urgency. Urgency creates imbalance, and imbalance destroys attraction. Stoicism trains you to confront loss before it happens. You imagine the possibility of it ending. You accept that people can leave. You accept that opportunities can pass. You accept that outcomes are never guaranteed. Not to become pessimistic, but to become prepared. When you internalize that nothing external is permanent, you stop clinging. And when you stop clinging, your behavior changes. You speak your truth without over-editing it. You maintain your standards without softening them out of fear. You show interest without overselling yourself. You allow space without anxiety. Because you know this. If it leaves, you remain. That is the core of non-chasing energy. You do not operate from scarcity. You operate from self-sufficiency. You are not threatened by silence. You are not destabilized by distance. You are not consumed by what-ifs. You are grounded, and grounded people move differently. They don't panic when responses slow down. They don't spiral when plans change. They don't abandon their dignity to avoid temporary discomfort. They accept that alignment either exists or it doesn't, and if it doesn't, they walk calmly. When you reach that point, attraction becomes effortless, not because you are playing a game, but because you are no longer desperate to win one. You are free from fear, and freedom is magnetic. What belongs to you does not require panic to maintain. It requires presence, and presence cannot coexist with fear of loss. Once you remove that fear, chasing becomes unnecessary, because you are no longer trying to hold on to what is meant to stay. At the highest level, don't chase, attract is about holding your position. Not stubbornly, not arrogantly, but steadily. Most people shift their position constantly. They adjust their personality to gain approval. They dilute their standards to maintain attention. They speed up or slow down depending on how someone else responds. Their center moves with the wind. Stoicism teaches immovability of character. You decide who you are. You decide your standards. You decide your pace. And then you hold that position. You do not lunge forward to secure someone's interest. You do not retreat into games to create artificial mystery. You remain consistent. Consistency creates trust. Trust creates attraction. When you hold your position, you give others the opportunity to step toward you freely. You are not dragging them. You are not persuading them. You are not convincing them. You are simply showing up as yourself, fully aligned. And if they move closer, it is voluntary. That voluntary movement is powerful, because what chooses you freely stays differently than what you pressured into staying. Stoicism reminds you that your job is not to orchestrate every outcome. Your job is to live with integrity and accept the results. You plant the seed. You water your own discipline. You tend your character. You let nature take its course. If it grows, it was aligned. If it doesn't, it was never yours to force. When you internalize that, you stop exhausting yourself trying to manage perception. You stop calculating every interaction. You stop overthinking every pause. You live. You improve. You stay grounded. And you let alignment happen naturally. Because the strongest position you can hold is one rooted in self-respect. And self-respect never chases, it attracts.